I'm Megan DeFord.
And I'm Richard Talafera.
We're both coaches, and we're teaming up to have the kind of conversations we have with our clients. The sometimes messy, always meaningful, what now questions we all face.
In each episode, we'll take on a question or challenge about work, purpose, and all the spaces in between.
Think of it like the show Frasier, but with less neuroses and more real-world coaching.
So let's dive in.
Richard, great to see you. Today we are talking about people pleasing. Is that okay with you?
That's okay with me, Megan. Is it okay with you?
It's okay with me too.
Yeah. Okay, great.
So people pleasing, oh my gosh, I feel like so many people experience people pleasing in lots of different ways, but let's talk about it and how it shows up in our lives and why the heck do we do it?
The idea came up when I saw Sherry, the first woman to win as a trainer in the Kentucky Derby. A couple of days later, she wore a hat that said, "I'm not for everybody."
Yeah.
And she's on it right there, because sometimes we don't want to be jerks. We never want to be jerks, but there was a line between getting along with everybody and abandoning yourself. And I think that's one of the things we're going to explore today is what's that line? How do you define that line? How do you stay on the best line for you?
I think this is such a rich topic that actually ties into our last episode with success. And you must see it a lot in your career coaching. I see it in every client I worked with, every woman. I think women in particular are socialized to be liked and to be needed. And that often can show up later on throughout your life as people pleasing. But as I was thinking about this, that idea of success in our last episode and this idea of from the moment we enter school, and I'm not anti-school, I just want to put that off. But the moment we enter school and, preschool, you are in a system with a rubric and there are metrics. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that's how we are formed, right? And we want to meet that standard. We want to meet that A. And it gets back to that idea almost of people pleasing, right? Like it doesn't really matter if you like math or history, you got to perform and you need to regurgitate back out. And then that can go into the job market, that can go into your personal relationships, that can go into all of these expectations that are put on us versus the intentionality of how we want to show up and how we want to live. And sometimes that people pleasing is very close, those expectations of people pleasing is very close to our values, right? It feels good to be liked. It feels good to be helpful. So it's a really interesting topic that I think people pleasing sort of is the umbrella for a lot of different things going on. And one of the things that you talked about is this idea of being easy to work with and that performance trap.
Yes, absolutely. Where, we perform tasks, we perform to get good grades, but at the same time, are we losing the sense of ourselves as we are doing that performance? Are we doing this because we want to, or are we doing this because we have to? Sometimes got to get the A, sometimes so our parents will get off of our backs.
Right, because you've got to get to a good college, because you've got to get a good job, and you've got to get a good job so you can have a nice house and 2.5 kids and a partner. And when you're in that cycle, you're not developing yourself.
You're not developing a sense of yourself and what you like and don't like, because you're so worried about making sure that you're liked, that maybe you are in a situation where you're eating asparagus and you hate asparagus, but because everybody around you is eating the asparagus like it's going out of style, you've got to do that too. And that's, I think, a very small example of self-abandonment, where rather than, I don't want to eat asparagus, I want to eat Brussels sprouts. All right. But you don't feel like you're in a situation where you can. And I think when it comes to people pleasing, I think there's a difference between being nice and being kind.
Mhm,
And I think being kind is without that self abandonment.
mhm,
It is stating who you are and what you like and what your boundaries are, as opposed to quote unquote being nice and going along to get along with other people,
mhm.
just so you don't quote unquote rock the boat.
Right.
We're sort of acclimatized to not wanting to rock the boat.
Mhm,
And I think a lot of energy, a lot of creative work that people have can get lost when we're so scared of rocking the boat that we stay on the boat until it tips over the falls, as
mhm.
it were.
And I think it's a fine line. And as you were talking about, we are rewarded for gets along with others. And
Mhm.
there's something important about that. It is important to get along with others.
Oh, yeah.
And there is that fine line, and you have to identify it for yourself. There is safety in community, and there is safety
Mhm.
in your example of asparagus or what, whatever. It's like I'm part of this group and there
Right.
is safety within the group. And, maybe I don't love asparagus, but I don't hate it. And I think
Okay.
that's where it becomes really dangerous, right? Like, it's fine. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been like, this is fine. And I really meant it. It wasn't
Mhm.
great. It wasn't what I wanted to be doing, but it was fine. And was I really going to upset the apple cart? So the that idea of identity and finding community is sort of that fine line. And we want people, I think part of what we're dealing with as a society in the US is that we aren't acquiescing. Everybody's opinion matters the most.
Yeah.
So this is a tricky topic. So I guess my question to you is, how do we identify when we are people pleasing and abandoning ourselves versus what I'm talking about of like, it's okay to be within community. It's okay to have compromise. It's okay to, I was about to say go along to get along, but that's not what I mean. It's okay to embody some of these ideals that can flip into people pleasing. So I guess maybe we should
Mhm.
define a little bit more of, like you said, does it become when it's self abandonment? Like, how do we find those markers?
I think one of those markers is what you just said, is community. Who are you surrounding yourself with? And is that group really a community that will lovingly call you out on your stuff? Or is that community more like a mob and that will lead you astray and will enforce bad boundaries? And I think that's sort of who we surround ourselves with is key. And having good friends, good bosses, good mentors who will call us out on our stuff and do it in a way that is constructive and not tearing you down, I think is one way to do it.
I'm
I
looking
think.
something up as I listen to you, and it has to do with our girlfriend, Dr. Brene Brown. And as we're
Mhm.
saying that in the mob mentality and community, there's this idea of belonging. And
Yes.
belonging is a precursor for success. Belonging is
Mhm.
an outcome of success. And what I was just looking up, and I will verify this. I'll go back in and edit this if I didn't get it quite right. What her research showed, and this was mind blowing to me, like the opposite of belonging, I would have thought was ostracization, being on the outside. Sorry, I
Mhm.
tried to
Yep.
use SAT word there, but I thought it was being ostracized. And the
Mhm.
opposite of belonging is fitting in.
That's
And
wild, right?
and when you think about it, it's what we're talking about and what you were just
Mhm.
saying of like, if you're in your example, if the commonality is hating something or
Mhm.
just liking something and there's nothing else there, you're trying to fit in versus having this more expansive version of yourself where you can belong. And because otherwise, that fear of being ostracized and that lack of safety starts coming into place. And that's real.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a
That is
real
very
thing.
real.
And sometimes it's imagined, but it feels very dangerous. And
Mhm.
sometimes, and I don't want to discount people's experiences, sometimes it is dangerous.
Yeah.
It really is. So I think part of what we're talking about with people pleasing is the abandonment of who you are
Mm,
to fit in. And there may be that feeling of danger underneath, right? Of
right.
of if I speak up and say, I really prefer Brussels sprouts, are people going to invite me over? And it sounds silly,
Mhm.
but we see it in families all the time.
Yeah, and what's happening is there's a really ancient programming in our brains that's spinning up. And if we say we only like Brussels sprouts in a family that likes asparagus, we are scared that they're going to excommunicate us. And way, way back in the day, that meant certain death.
Yes.
It, it
Yeah.
meant certain death. Like being outside of the tribe on your own was, you know, was it.
Yeah.
But now, even though the stakes are lower, asparagus versus Brussels sprouts,
Right.
that ancient programming still loads up,
Right.
and the brain is a wild place
Yeah.
sometimes. So,
Yeah. And the other part of this as well, and let's get rid of our cruciferous vegetables and think about ice cream, right?
okay,
And I like asparagus and I like broccoli, depending on and Brussels sprouts, depending on
yeah,
how it's prepared. But let's say we're talking about vanilla ice cream and strawberry ice cream. Both are
okay,
pretty good.
they're good. Both of them.
I prefer strawberry, but I'm in a vanilla family. So you know what? I'm not gonna make waves. I'm one of 10 people. Everybody wants vanilla. I'll
Hmm.
just go along with vanilla. And it is that erosion of self over time and that not choosing yourself that
Mm,
starts to, like you said, the brain's a wild place where you start reinforcing this idea of, I am not worthy of strawberry. I am not worthy of my opinions. I am not worthy of
mhm.
the things that I want. And many times we are not in a life or death situation,
Right.
but it can feel like, well, shoot, what if these people I care about don't like me anymore because I want strawberry? And now they have to wait an extra 5 minutes for me to get strawberry ice cream when we go out, or
Mm,
whatever it is. So
yeah, yeah.
it's not only this feeling of abandoning yourself,
Mhm.
you start to make that the norm. You start to
Yeah.
create that groove in the vinyl of your life
Mm,
where
mhm.
just just go along with it. Like it's just better to go along with it.
Yeah, it becomes the story that you tell yourself. And often a question that comes after that is like, how do you know that story is true?
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that my family is going to abandon me if I choose the wrong ice cream? And it's the stakes aren't as high sometimes as our brains load up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the question is, how do you get out of that loop?
Yeah.
How do you get yourself out of that loop? How do you say, I can like both vanilla and strawberry?
Yeah.
Maybe I want a combination.
Yep.
Maybe I want it in Neapolitan ice cream this time around.
Whoa, Richard. Whoa.
All right, maybe I went too far. Maybe I went
That's
too far.
crazy town. Yeah, no, I think within that it is what we're talking about is you're performing your life for others,
Right.
for the comfort of others,
Hmm.
and taking a step back and seeing those things.
And I think that points out one thing where when you stop people pleasing, that can become a filter.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is when you stand in your own belief, your own will, your own way of being, people are going to start falling away.
Mm-hmm.
And we're scared of that. But the thing is, as some people might pull away from you, other people might come into the picture as well.
Yeah.
and you can have a different kind of journey with those different people.
Yeah. And I think it is the fear of judgment from other people. So many of us experience that. Like, what are other people going to think about me? And
Huh?
I think underneath of it, it's what am I going to think about myself? And
Yes.
when you take that layer back and you see, I really have been abandoning myself for a while. I'm not even sure who I am anymore. We've talked about this with identity of really trying to figure yourself out outside of your title, whether that's a job title, whether that's brother, sister, mom, dad, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And identifying that identity. Do I even like who I am? And
Hmm.
who am I? And who do I want to be? And I think we have these moments in life, and you and I are roughly middle age. I know
Yeah.
it's shocking when you look at us and it's like unbelievable.
Exactly.
And then I have a really good filter on the Zoom call. But I think that there are points in our lives where if we can take the time to reflect and step back, and you talk about this a lot, like step back and pause and be with
Hmm.
yourself. But so often we have these external pressures, and I'm talking really about societal pressures, that
Yeah.
we don't stop to think, is this what I want? And if it is what I want, how do I want to go about it? There's nothing wrong with wanting a big career. There's nothing wrong with wanting to become a parent. There's nothing wrong with any of these things if you're
Hmm.
actively choosing it. And within that intentionality, how you want to show up
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
that way. So when you
Yeah.
think about, you graduate high school and maybe the next step is college. Maybe your next step shouldn't be college. Maybe
Right.
your next step should be volunteering and seeing the world for a little while, or, and
Hmm.
gaining some emotional maturity and some perspective. College isn't going anywhere, but we have this pressure of like, you need to get in there. You
Yep.
need,
Need to
there's
go
this,
right
there's
now.
this scarcity mindset, and you don't know what your degree is. Well, what
Yeah.
job are you going to get? And it is very countercultural to step back and say, you know what? Like, this isn't what I want to do, or this is what I want to do, but I need to give it a little bit more time. And I'm curious about your perspective as a man. And you don't speak for all men, I don't speak for all women, but I think your late 20s, early 30s, you start realizing, I don't know if I want to be a mom, or maybe I do want to be a mom, or at least hold out the opportunity for that. There's a
Hmm.
real biological time frame there.
Yeah.
And so there are markers in our life that we have some control over and some that we don't, right? And those moments to just almost, I want to say, like, be quiet and sit with yourself.
No, that's it. You're on to it. It's the way that we think of life is as a very linear track. All right. It's go to high school, go to college, get the job, get married, have a family. But as both of us know, life has so many twists and exactly
Feels like an
so many
octopus,
twists and
right? Like, yeah.
turns. And I think that's a part of the people pleasing is trying to stay in that straight line.
Yeah.
But we have to give ourselves, and as coaches, we give our clients the tools to handle the twists and turns that are always going to show up. Where we get so surprised when the straight line that we thought we were on catches a curve.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, the curve is there. How do I deal with it rather than short circuit and shut down?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And I'm curious too, like, we often hear about midlife crisis, right? And I was just talking about sort of these checkpoints. Why do we feel like, at least, and I shouldn't say that, I shouldn't frame it that way. The midlife crisis is like a real thing, right? Like, this has been
yeah.
studied and there's research behind it.
Mhm.
But let's talk about it kind of unscientifically here. What do you
Okay.
think it is about midlife for so many people that it is this moment of, you either buy the Porsche or you sit with yourself and figure out who you are? Well,
Hmm.
Porsche guy, I don't know. But like,
Yeah.
what do you think that's about?
I I think some of it is knowing that we're at halftime
Hmm.
and starting to think about, okay, what's the second half going to look like?
Hmm.
And we look back and we go, did we achieve all the things that we thought we were going to achieve. And some of that self-abandonment starts coming into play where if you've had a family, maybe you've had to sacrifice some things for the health, the safety, the welfare of your family, for example. Or maybe you have spent decades in a career and that career or that industry is looking shakier and shakier by the day.
Mhm.
And like, maybe I should have taken that buyout a few years ago. And so there's certainty that we thought we had in our 20s and 30s starts withering away. And that's very scary. And so we end up doing things like going down to the Porsche dealer and buying a red 911 because we think that's going to give us some sort of stability.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the question then becomes, okay, I'm at midlife, things went sideways at different times in my life. There's an opportunity there to ask the question, what am I going to do now?
Mhm.
But in a way that is additive to your life. There's a great quote by the author and social critic Albert Murray. He wrote an essay about jazz, and he said that your moment of greatest danger is your moment of greatest opportunity.
Mhm.
And you've got the opportunity now to take that question and really make something of it.
Mhm.
Maybe not just for yourself, but for the people around you. And you've got an incredible amount of power to be able to write the script that you want to write. And we were talking about filters and people pleasing, and there are going to be people again who are going to see that script and want no part of it. And there are people who are going to see that script and want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Those are your people.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to go for it.
Yeah. I think the other thing about midlife is we've actually lived life, right? With like a fully
Mm-hmm.
frame for a
Mm-hmm.
while, like I look at 20-year-olds and like I love them. I think they're wild people and wonderful and optimistic. And this isn't judgment of 20-year-olds, but I literally sometimes look at them and I'm like, your brain hasn't formed yet. Like literally your brain like has not fully formed yet. And if you think about it, and I'm just going to simplify this, if your brain really isn't fully formed until your mid 20s to early 30s, midlife in your 40s and 50s, you really have only been experiencing life in that kind of way for a relatively short time in
Mm-hmm.
comparison. Jane Fonda has this thing of the 3 phases of life, and I love thinking about it that way. It's like 0 to
Okay.
30, 30 to 60, 60 to 90. It's kind of like
Okay.
her thing.
Love it.
And so when you're thinking about your 40s and 50s, to like what you said, you're halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you want to do with the back half of your life? But you also have a lot of life to look back on thus far and to say,
Mm-hmm.
like, where did I zig where I should have zagged? What if this was different? I think where the people pleasing aspect of this and maybe the Porsche example comes into play, or the facelift or whatever, it can show up as like this numbness or resentment, or
Yeah.
you can't make a decision anymore. And this self-abandonment, that's like how it really can show up. And so you can go, like you said, the most dangerous, or Murray said, the most dangerous moment is your moment of opportunity. You can go and continue achieving and performing in order to get those feelings down and buy the Porsche. No, no, no. I'm not numb. I bought a Porsche. No,
Yes.
no, no.
Exactly.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Like, or you can take that moment and say, what have I learned? And what do I want this next 5 minutes, 5 weeks, 5 years to look like with intention? And
Exactly.
maybe it looks different. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the challenge with that people pleasing aspect is you have to, with the identity piece, learn to trust yourself again.
That's
Yeah.
huge.
Like fully trust
Yeah.
yourself,
Fully, because sometimes you spent time in offices, for example, and working on projects, and you see something in a project that's not quite right, or it's not going to work. and you don't say anything.
Mhm.
And then the project goes sideways.
Yeah.
That's an example of self-abandonment.
Yeah.
And when that happens on a regular basis, that self-trust erodes.
Yeah.
And you might spend the rest of your life building that self-trust muscle back up.
Mhm.
And when you do, I would imagine that the world opens up again.
Yeah.
You've got the ability to see that, yes, you made mistakes. You were quiet when you shouldn't have been quiet,
Mhm.
and you've learned the lesson. And if that's the case, then it really wasn't a failure.
Mhm.
It was just a learning experience. Yeah.
Totally. And as we're thinking about this, if you are in the process of doing less people pleasing and
Mhm.
putting the opinions and values and pleasure of others before your own, what are some of the ways that you know you're making different choices? Maybe that's not the way to say it, but like for me, I would say the first thing is being able to tolerate discomfort.
That's
I think it's a
huge.
huge one, right? Like by being authentically you and
Mhm.
what was it? I'm not for everyone, like that difficult. And so saying that first time, you know what? I don't want asparagus. I'm going to get Brussels sprouts. And tolerating that discomfort potentially, I think is a huge first step. Like I think that's a really big thing. You're not going to die.
No,
Like
no, you're not going to get excommunicated from the tribe. You're still going to be here. And hey, maybe you be like Sherry DeVoe and you buy a hat that says, I'm not for everybody.
yeah.
And I'm not being facetious here. It's like sometimes we need a physical anchor that can show ourselves what we are made of.
Yes.
Just a reminder that maybe it's just a post-it note on your screen. Maybe it is a hat,
Yeah.
but you wear the hat, you see the post-it note, and it's like, okay, that's a reminder. That's my
Yeah.
reminder for today. I'm not
Yeah.
for everybody. So,
And I
yeah.
think that idea of tolerating discomfort and tolerating the discomfort within yourself to be misunderstood. And the thing is, if you can anchor into, I understand who I am, or I am learning who I am,
Mm,
again, separating yourself from that external validation is huge. I
mm,
think the other thing too is making decisions before certainty or you're ready. I think so many times we get caught in these loops again of like, I need to perform, I need to people
mm,
please, I need to be needed, and I need to do it the right way. And like, you know what? Sometimes just make the decision and go and
yeah,
trust yourself that if
mhm.
it's the right decision, it's the right decision. If it wasn't the right decision, you'll be able to handle it. But not getting in that
It is.
cycle of, I just don't know what to do. You probably do know what to do.
And some of that is waiting for the perfect time to do that. And I'm always reminded of saying that another coach told me, which was take imperfect action.
Hmm.
It's in trust your ability of being able to handle it if it doesn't quite go right,
Right.
and continue to build that muscle,
Yeah.
because being consistent about these things and is so key to proving to yourself that you can do it,
Yeah.
and that you can, in building that muscle of belief and
Yeah.
bravery as well.
I think the other thing too is like starting small with things and reminding yourself that
Definitely.
if you're showing up as your best self, even in smaller ways, you
Hmm.
are of better service to the world, to the people in your life.
Hmm.
And that could be as simple as saying, like, you know what? No, I can't stay late tonight.
Right.
I
Exactly.
I can't volunteer to make the cake, even though you make the cake every year for, whatever party or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Setting those boundaries for yourself, even in smaller ways. And then not only are you moving through that discomfort, but it's the afterwards part. Let it go. How does that feel?
It probably feels like a huge weight off your shoulders. because part of that people pleasing is wanting to be seen as the reliable one.
No is a complete statement.
Bingo.
And
Bingo.
within that, you could say, no, I'm so busy right now. Actually, I could use your help with and asking for your needs versus abandoning your own. It
Yes.
can be, this is a nice entree to advocate for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And part of the loss in people pleasing is not being able to advocate for ourselves, advocate for our own needs and own wants. I think there's some always worry and concern about, oh my God, what's this person going to think about me if I'm not seen as reliable anymore?
Right.
Again, loading that story up, that how do you know that story is true? Being able to tell ourselves another story about ourselves.
And I think what you just said right there is we are equating our worthiness with someone else's pleasure. And that's a real dangerous game to play. Like that's really difficult. And even taking a step back and saying that out loud to yourself, like, whoa, that's not what I'm trying to do here. Sometimes we just get in these grooves, I think of a record and you're like, wait a minute, literally a record scratch, like, that's not what we're doing. I also think about our friend Tom and like thinking about nature and like we are meant to change. We are nature. We are meant to change and evolve. That's totally normal. The trees don't ask, should I change, the colors of the leaves in the fall and fall off? Is that okay with you, Richard? Is it okay in winter if the leaves fall off the trees? Like, and I think we need to remember that there are cycles in our lives and being open to that and that it's normal and it's natural and it's okay. Like,
Absolutely okay. We don't live our lives in a straight line, but there's this weird expectation that we do.
mhm.
And like you said, it's cycles,
Yeah.
life cycles. And we have to be, as you said, and as you noted, we have to be at the very least cognizant of those cycles and respect those cycles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, I think all of this is we're talking about it, your brain can go in a lot of different directions and you can almost have a counter argument for a lot of what we're saying if you're taking it to the extremes, right? Like we're not talking
Mhm.
about being selfish. We're not talking about yourself above others at all times and things like that. I think it really is coming into, again, that abandonment, that lack of identity, that lack of intentionality when you should start thinking like, is this really what I want? Is this really how I want to show up? And you have said it so many times beautifully in this conversation. What story am I telling myself in this moment?
Yep.
What story am I telling myself? Am I, abandoning myself so I can be the hero by staying up till midnight making the cake? And do the people I'm making it for want me to even do that? Like
Yeah.
how many times has someone done something and you're like, oh my God, you didn't have to do that. Like you should have just told me.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
so again,
Yeah.
thinking about that narrative, well, how should we end this conversation about people pleasing?
It's you're not one way to put a bow on this
Mm-hmm.
is to remember that you saying that you're not for everybody
Mm-hmm.
is not the same thing as you don't care. You do care and you have boundaries as well. And if you don't respect your own boundaries, guess what? Nobody else will.
That's right.
And it's when we are respectful of ourselves, other people will be respectful of us.
I think that's a beautiful way to end it. And I think that not being for everyone
Mhm.
is okay because otherwise you end up living a life you never chose. And for who? Why would you waste any second of your life trying to be something for someone else when it's not you, when it's not
Yep.
who you are? And I think so many of us, in some form, fashion, at some point in our lives, have woken up and have been like, wait, what am I doing? Like, what am
Uh-huh.
I doing right now? Let go of that shame, let go of that guilt, get curious about it, take a step back and have fun with rediscovering yourself.
Megan, as you always say, eat up the universe.
Eat it up.
Eat it up like Neapolitan ice cream.
Eat your Brussels sprouts first and then have your ice cream. Well,
Yeah.
Richard, I think this was really good. And I hope if people are listening to this and seeing some of these pieces in themselves and are like, huh, yeah, maybe I should make a difference here, or maybe I am abandoning myself a little bit in the name of people pleasing.
Mhm.
I think we're both saying start small. Just
Start small. You know, to use a baseball analogy, just get on base. You can't make any waves if you're not on base.
and then give yourself credit for it. Well, if you're
Right.
okay with it, I'm going to end our conversation.
Okay.
Is that
Sounds
okay with
good.
you?
Let me think about it. Yes.